UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Hello, a warm welcome this evening, this Wednesday, the 15th of February 2023, a day after St. Valentine's Day, celebrated by a number of you out there. Hope you had it well. My name is Charles Odongtho, and welcome to Behind the Headlines here at UBC on Nile Avenue here in Kampala. Today we discuss another yet very important topic, a topic that affects social life, affects the economy, of course is now before Parliament. We are talking about the Alcohol Control Bill 2022, and to discuss that bill and the issues therein, I will start from my extreme left. We have the Honorable Kabyanga Geoffrey, is Minister of State in the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. Honorable, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charles Odongtho, and good evening, viewers.
Next to him is his former colleague in cabinet, now MP for Tororo District, and Honorable Sarah Acheng Opendi. You will realize today we have many Sarahs on the show, and it is one of those shows that I admire. The women are outnumbering the men. I am yet to see whether the quality of discussion and the strength, which side they will go, the men and the women here. But Honorable Sarah, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewers. I hope you will explain why you had to bring
only
the Sarahs to this show.
No, I think some coincidences are good. It means the Sarahs are also good. So,
but I also didn't know that this is going to be a contest between the women and the men.
No, it will be of the contest of ideas, not between the men. But good to have you, Honorable Sarah Opendi. Honorable Sarah Opendi is the mover of the motion that seeks to control, to regulate alcohol consumption, production, and a number of things in this country. So, rightly so, she is here with us. We couldn't get a better person than her. Talking of getting a better person, who else could it be? A man who promotes alcohol in this country. He promotes the economy. He is the second biggest taxpayer, and that speaks loud about the discussion that we are going to be having today. Let's welcome Honorable Francis Onapito Ekomoloid. He is the Director for Legal and Corporate Affairs at Nile Breweries, and he is also Chairman of the Uganda Alcohol Industry Association. Very important.
Thank you, Charles.
Onapito,
thank you, Charles. Thank you, Charles. And you first must pity me. I'm sandwiched by the three Sarahs. So I hope I will survive.
You are not safe.
And good evening, viewers. And I'm excited to be on your show, Charles.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next to Honorable Onapito, many people, by the way, usually forget, Onapito at one time was also an MP for...
Once upon a time.
He was in the 7th Parliament?
6th.
Oh, in the 6th
the
Parliament.
Only Parliament.
Oh, you belong to the Parliament that was the Parliament.
The Parliament of Parliaments.
Okay, that's don't tell Honorable Kabyanga and Honorable Sarah Opendi that one. They will not like it, but it's one of those good things we celebrate. Next to Honorable Onapito is Professor, again, Sarah. This time Sally. She is Dean, School of Women and Gender Studies at Makerere University. Honorable Professor, welcome back to the show for this new year.
Thank you very much, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
Good to have you. We have been missing you, and of course, Pole Sana, for the last 2-3 months. We left you. We didn't want to disturb you as you were mourning the passing of your dad. We sympathize with the family, with you, the children, but we pray that his soul continues to rest in peace. But it's good to have you. And finally, Council Sarah again, this time berated.
Sarah again.
Because now there are 2.
We are 3, and the Sarahs are mothers of nations in the Bible. So
Princesses.
the country is safe.
Now I didn't know that one. Thanks for telling me. Council Sarah Birete is the Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance, CCG, and they do lots of work in the civil society. Ladies and gentlemen, we are I told you the bill is called the Alcohol Control Bill 2022, and the title is the bill seeks to regulate. That the one I've read is the title, but the intention is that it seeks to regulate the manufacture, importation, the sale and consumption of alcohol drinks, and also provide for the licensing of persons trading in alcoholic drinks and their premises. Let me start with the person who has moved this motion, Honorable Sarah Opendi. When I had a discussion with some senior citizens, the question that kept coming to their mind, is this the most important problem for Uganda? I mean, taking alcohol, producing alcohol. If so, how do we regulate it? That's the question to start from with Honorable Sarah Opendi.
Thank you, first of all, for inviting me to this show. If I was not here, I would be watching you.
No, thank you. We appreciate it.
But you have asked, is this the most important issue? Let us know that we have had various bills passed by Parliament. And of course, the bills are brought by the government, but also moved by private members. And as private members moving a bill, you are limited. The bill you move must not have a charge on the consolidated fund. So there are bills that you want to move, but automatically it will have a charge on the consolidated fund. So that collapses immediately. So that is one of the things that you must consider when moving the bills. But also secondly, saying that is this the most important thing, it looks like we have done nothing before. Parliament, other than legislations, we have motions that we move. We have petitions that we present. I have moved a motion on school fees, and it has been a topical issue. However, it took the committee a year to process that motion. I have moved a petition on the maternal deaths, which seems not to be reducing in this country. It is before the Committee on Health. We have moved other bills as the Uganda Women's Parliamentary Association. And of course, one of them is the market bill. You know that we've had markets before, but we've not had any piece of legislation that regulates the operations in the markets. And you know the majority of the people in the market are actually women. This bill is before the president. It has taken a while there, but we hope that soon he will assent to it, because he has not returned it as he normally does with his comments. So there are various legislations, the succession amendment that was passed. We've had the minerals, the mining bill, which is now an act to regulate the mining sector in this country, and so many other bills. So to say, is this the most important? I think that question is misplaced for me, because we've passed many other bills.
Good.
But of course, you must also know that alcohol has, while it is widely consumed, it has its own negative effects on the health of the population. It has its own, some people that consume alcohol have caused death to people in this country, drink driving, and people end up, we end up into road accidents and people have lost their lives. We've seen domestic violence increasing, or there is high domestic violence at the grassroots level. If you go to the countryside, we who represent rural areas, you know what goes on in the villages now. In the past, and I've said this severally, as we were growing up, people would work, and it's only after lunch, after work, that people go gather for whatever drink they want to take. But today, with the so many trading centers that have come up, you find people consuming alcohol at any time of the day. In the morning, and it's majorly the men drinking alcohol. They've left the gardens and all the other work to the women. And there has been talk that women are beating men. But if a man is drunk every other time and demanding for food, and they have left the homes for the women to manage, what do you expect? The women have become the heads of homes. So it is time now for us to sit and think. This is not going to be the first time that alcohol will be regulated in this country. We must know that we have the Liquor Act, Cap 97. This was a piece of legislation that was enacted in the 1960s. We have the Nguli Act. This was in the 1960s. And 1965. And the other one is the Wines and Spirits. Yeah, that was also in the 1960s. So it's not something new that we are coming up to regulate alcohol. There have been these bills, these acts, these pieces of legislation, which are now obsolete when you look at the fines in those bills. Because, for example, the Liquor Act prohibits the production and sale of alcohol. Now, when you look at the fine therein, 10,000, 3,000 shillings, is that something that can prohibit me?
500.
Yes. Can that prohibit me from actually breaking the law? I will commit.
You can actually first pass by, you pay for the fine.
Yes, you pay for the fine and then go and yes. But also, most importantly, the beer that, not the beer, the alcohol that is consumed in this country, only 35% is regulated.
Only 35?
Yes.
Okay.
The rest, we don't know what it is.
Okay.
There is beer, there are spirits. Beer is, I think, 11%. We have spirits, which is about 3%. And then the wines, maybe 1%. But then the other percentage, we don't know. You can't classify it. You can't categorize it.
Okay.
So we need to have order. And we have seen people going blind. The West Nile case was the most recent. People are producing alcohol because it is not regulated. You don't know what is in that alcohol. And in the villages, people go to consume this because you take it, a little of it, and you're drunk. Okay. But the effect, people lost their lives, people have gone blind because of this unregulated alcohol. Okay. So the bill does not intend to stop the consumption or the production of alcohol. And that argument must be picked, because there are people who think that we want to stop the production of alcohol. No. That we want to stop the consumption of alcohol. No. So this is what the bill
6 to
2.
By the way, before I bring in Mr. Onapito, how far is the progress of the bill?
We've been consulting because I sought leave to consult, and we are almost, I think, about 90%. Yeah.
Okay.
So we are just left with a few.
So it hasn't
one
been
or
brought
two.
yet even for first reading?
No. That's
Not
what I'll be doing maybe in
shortly.
the next 3 weeks.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good. Mr. Onapito, you, one fact is that the beer industry or the alcohol industry is both a social discussion, but most significantly, it is an economic discussion. One of the things I know is that Nile Breweries that you work for is the second biggest contributor to the resource base in terms of paying of taxes after MTN, I think. Now, Honorable Sarah Opendi wants to regulate it. She says she doesn't want to stop it. But when you regulate, you limit a lot of things. Tell us what your association is bringing on the discussion to the response that to responses that she is raising.
Thank you, Charles.
And why must Ugandans be concerned about this bill?
Thank you, Charles, and I'd like to thank Honorable Pendi for initiating this discussion. You know, Charles, I would like to categorize or to characterize the proposed alcoholics control bill as I want to use the war analogy. It's an unguided missile. You know? So there is an enemy which the Honorable Pendi has ably tried to illustrate, but the missile is unguided, and if launched the way she wants to launch it, is likely to cause a lot of collateral damage. You have already indicated the extent of the damage to the good side of alcohol. I sit here representing the Alcohol Industry Association. 40 plus active members who contribute to the economy the way you have tried to indicate. And I think what the country needs to know very clearly, that when we talk about alcohol in this country, there are actually two categories of alcohol. And I think Honorable Sarah Pendi has indicated that fact, that the bulk of the alcohol is anything up to 65 plus of the market. I sit here to represent the minority of the alcohol, but the one which is known for both perhaps the good and maybe even mistakenly for the bad. So we are concerned that as people who represent the good alcohol, if I may call it so, this bill unfortunately has omnibus provisions which are intended for the bad alcohol, but unfortunately because we are the visible target, the impact is going to be on us. Because for all the time the Uganda government has existed since independence, it has failed to shine light on the bad alcohol, the majority alcohol, which we call in our sector the illicit alcohol.
The illicit alcohol.
Characterized by no licensing, no certification, no registration, no taxation. So it is as bad as it can be. So when we had an opportunity to consult with the Honorable Sarah and her drafting team, we told her precisely that your bill is targeting the wrong alcohol. And if you try to apply it the way you want, it's not going to achieve anything. So let me first just highlight the good alcohol, what it means for this country. This is the alcohol which people around this table, some might be partaking of. It's consumed by reasonable citizens who are contributing to the country, who are contributing to their families. And in the process, they put in up to $1 trillion plus shillings into the treasury, directly and indirectly. They create market for farmers because beer is essentially a food made from grains largely. So you have farmers, even for spirits, you have farmers in sugarcane. So there's a huge category of employment. Maybe our estimates are 1.3 million jobs are created by alcohol. Of course, there are jobs directly in industries like Nile Breweries where I work. So, and then there are a lot of young people who are employed in the selling of alcohol. So these are the benefits that are real. And the gratifying fact is that this particular alcohol that I represent is fully, as I'm speaking, is fully conscious of what Honorable Sarah Opendi is concerned about. And it has gone ahead to put in measures to try and mitigate alongside all the other stakeholders that yes, alcohol causes happiness, alcohol contributes to the economy, but we are aware that like many other things, alcohol has its bad side. And it's not limited to alcohol, it's across board. All the science has now put a torch on so many things to show that they all have a negative impact, and the standard solution is education. Because when it comes to consumption, you cannot legislate and police consumption. So our fundamental problem with the bill, or the proposed bill, is that indiscriminate attempt to categorize alcohol as one. And when it comes to enforcement, our experience is very vivid. During the COVID lockdown, when government had rightly said no moving around, no congregating, there was still some drinking of alcohol. So the enforcers made a fortune. But they were not enforcing in the villages, in those trading centers they are talking about. They are enforcing on Kampala Road. They are enforcing in Mbarara City, in Ginger City. And this is what will happen with this bill. That is one element. Specifically, what are we uncomfortable about? This idea of limiting hours. We feel this is an attack on all the freedoms that this government has brought to Ugandans, characterized by freedom of socialization, freedom of movement. Kampala, for example, and many of the cities in Uganda are 24/7 cities. They don't sleep. People are shopping 24/7. So how do you isolate alcohol, which is a lawful product? If government was conscious of the fact that alcohol is so bad, it would have been outlawed. But the moment you allow something as lawful, you cannot stigmatize it alongside other lawful products and say, for it there are moments for it, others, then, and it's an insult on, I think, the intelligence of adults whom we target. We say alcohol is for adults. And throughout our lifetime, we have seen adults consciously use alcohol and remain useful to themselves and to society. Why do you think that you have the right to tell them what time they should drink alcohol? Those who actually know what they are doing. So we think a provision on limiting trading hours is damaging to the economy and is damaging to freedoms.
Okay.
And is contrary to all the what we believe to be a free society. And then there is another standout provision of special licensing to sell alcohol. Again, I would say, if you say alcohol is lawful, like many other products, why do you want to burden small-scale traders in particular who are, they sell alcohol alongside other groceries? Why do you want to tell them, unless if you have a special license, you can sell soap, you can sell what, but not alcohol? And these people are already struggling with the current licensing costs. And it's the commitment of government to reduce the cost of business. So why do you want to bring double licensing? That no putting alcohol alongside other groceries. We think this is contrary to promoting enterprise of small scale and medium scale traders.
Okay.
They should be given the freedom to sell alcohol using the same license which they have already paid for.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say, is alcohol regulated? The one I represent
Is regulated.
it is fully regulated, extensively regulated. Whether you are importing raw material for alcohol, URL will be on your bumper. You cannot produce alcohol without excise license. You need a digital tax stamps. You need a city or municipal trading license. So for that alcohol, we are telling Honorable Sarah that, can you please leave us, not to leave us alone, but can we be together and target the other alcohol, the bad one?
Let me,
because we really don't.
But you're on the same side, you're shooting from the
Yes,
same side.
yes, but we know if we go with the omnibus approach, where there is no distinction in the law, what will happen is that the enforcement will come on the legitimate alcohol. For example, if you say your intention for limiting trading hours is the guys or people who are drinking in trading centers in the countryside, when the enforcers go to tackle that or to enforce that law, they will go on Kampala Road. They will target the high-end places. What happens? They go and extort from our traders. We saw it during COVID. They are forced to increase prices. The demand for our product goes down. Everyone loses. So we think this law should be made special for illicit alcohol.
Okay.
For us, we are fully covered and we are ready to support the fight against illicit.
so your proposal, in other words, is that start changing from the name.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. Sarah
It
will-
should say illicit alcoholic drinks control bill.
Okay. Let me ask a question before I bring in the minister and the two Sarahs decide. Ona, have you, sorry, Mr. Onapito, sorry viewer, we in journalism we are used to calling Onapito
They know, so don't worry.
Ona. So, Mr. Onapito, have you engaged Honorable Sarah Opendi as an association?
Yes, yes,
You
we
have
have,
engaged
we have
her.
engaged, and that's why we are smiling at each other. And we are,
And is there an attempt to come to the middle ground on these changes that you are proposing for the good of the bill?
I hope so.
Okay.
I hope
No,
so.
let me make it
I
clear.
hope so.
Let me make it
I hope
clear.
so.
Yes,
I am consulted.
Yeah.
So nobody should say that I have a bill,
that you have already taken
that
a
I have
position.
taken a position. No,
Good.
we are consulted.
Good.
And that
Okay.
is why we met them. We've met different
I
stakeholders
like
in this.
that. I like that. And,
And
that's
we've
what
picked very good views from them.
from their side.
Yeah.
Okay, Honorable Minister, I proposed with colleagues. We you know, the producers. We looked at this bill. We said it has major, you know, implications on the economy, on social life, but that it is something very interesting to discuss, even when you don't go into the real content yet. And we said we must have a senior government person because this is something that is government really. And Honorable Sarah Opendi even referred to the, you know, the certificate of financial implication that will be a must, I think, to attach for you as government to accept. What are your thoughts, given the two contestations of ideas so far on this bill? Do you think, why is government, and you are in charge of national guidance, why is government failing to regulate illicit drinking, leading to Honorable Sarah and her colleagues thinking that we must regulate this sector?
Thank you very much, Charles. The first question you asked Sarah was, is it the most important bill? You know, Charles, something that concerns people's health, people's safety, and something that affects productivity of the people is priority to government. So when you ask, sir, is it the most important? Yes, it is one of the most important bills. And I would like to thank Sarah for coming up with that.
Opendi for this case.
Honorable Opendi, so that we can differentiate them. Honorable Opendi for that. And alcohol alcohol consumption is as old as humankind. it was there from the beginning, and it will be there up to the what? Up to the end.
Even in the Bible.
Even in the Bible.
You know those.
It's even cultural.
Yeah.
In most of the cultures in Uganda here, when you're going to marry, you must first present some alcohol of some form. So, but if you look at the history of alcohol, our forefathers, they had specific way of brewing alcohol. But now all those things have changed. And that's why regulation is very, very important. And when Sarah, Honorable Pendi brought this alcohol control bill, I think it was very good, because he didn't want to segregate it to target only the illicit what? Alcohol. He wanted the whole alcohol. And Honorable Pito has brought very good issues. And I strongly believe, as Honorable Pendi has said, he has not yet completed drafting the what? The bill. All those things can be captured. But at the end of the day, I would like to tell Honorable Pito that it might also assist him. Because now the biggest problem which we have is this illicit what? Drinks, which are now taking 65% of the market, and they are not regulated at all.
But are you defeated as government to control and regulate it?
We are not defeated, but just as Honorable Sarah has told you, Opendi has told you, the fines, you yourself, you have said you can first go and pay the fine, deposit the fine. There is somewhere there is a fine of 500 shillings. And if someone commits a crime, they charge him only 500 shillings. Because me, I come from Kasese, and you know there is a drink called Kasese. So the origin of that gin, that waraji is what? Kasese Nguri. And in the past, they used to get that waraji from bananas. And it was specifically bananas and nothing else. And it was a very strong gin. But to produce, to brew that gin, you had to get a license. So there were specific licensed brewers. And you couldn't just brew without what? That license. And the Gombora chief would assure really you are using the correct what? Materials. And that was then. But now look at what is on the market. Recently, I think the Arua thing, they said it was ethanol. People just get chemicals from these ones which we were using in the lab. And they mix them, and after mixing them, they pack and sell to the public. So actually, we have a big problem. And that's why Honorable Opendi is saying, let us come up with a bill that can control, can regulate all these upcoming investors in ports. Yeah. Because me, I have been a local government leader. And most of the towns, that is the business now. And leave alone those gins. They are even more dangerous materials which now they are manufacturing. It is also more or less alcohol. But you know, these days, whenever they say this one gives power to men, everybody will go in for what? For it. Or this one gives pleasure to women. Women will also what? Run there. But eventually, when you look at what is in that, it is very, very dangerous substance. And that's why you are seeing so many people, so many youth with mental disorders because of consuming some of those illicit drinks. And then the packaging also, because if you look at the bill which Honorable Pendi is bringing, it's even talking about the packaging. They are making it so cheap that you cannot fail to buy it. And now recently at a certain school, they found nearly all the boys, most of the boys had the circuits in their what? In their pockets. And the teaching is there what? Sipping. At the end of the day, you see a kid just getting drunk in your own class.
Okay.
So all those are things which we need to look at. So Emia is seeing the bill is going to regulate, and even Honorable Napito will eventually benefit.
Okay.
Because these ones who are producing the unwanted gene, either we shall phase them out and then we remain with the other one.
Okay.
Because we need the money. These are big taxpayers, and we need that money. The issue of time, that one can be discussed.
We need to maintain UBC on air.
Yes, we must maintain UBC on air. This issue of regulating on time, during Amini's regime, they put there a law, because nobody would go to the bar, I think, before 2 o'clock.
Yeah, before 2.
Before 2 o'clock.
Before 2 p.m.
And me, I was old enough to see this. Nobody would go to the bar before 2.
And see how long he lasts.
But now what Honorable Nopito is saying, that it is a human right to go in the bar at 7 a.m. even if you don't work.
It is.
You don't know what people are doing now in the village, even in the villages. People have become completely unproductive. They just even steal the money from the. That's why women now are the ones in business, and the man steals money from the wife to go to the bar early in the morning, just to go and drink. So really, we need some regulation.
Fair
But what I can advise Honorable Nopito is go to Honorable Pendi. You look at the bill. If your problem is timing, we can look at that. But regulating this trade is very, very important, and I would like to thank Sarah for that.
Good.
Open.
We will be. It's a hard balance today, but it's okay, Honorable Kabianga. Professor, now that one is
Just
distinguishable.
use the title.
At least let her use Professor, Honorable Professor Counsel.
Yeah.
We are done.
Doctor.
Professor Sarah, this is a delicate balance, really. If you listen to the three, and I deliberately wanted them to set the ground for this discussion. Alcohol, very important across the world, but it's also interesting. My producer gave me something that he just read and shared with me, and says the World Health Organization has, in their repeated study or survey, they categorize Uganda among the leading global alcohol consumers in more than, in many years. And that for as low as 0.1 cents of US dollars, that's about 500 shillings, anyone can access a circuit of highly toxic beverage ranging from anywhere between 40 to 50% of alcohol content. Can you imagine? 50%. So the question that begs of us then is, where do we really lay the focus, and as a country, as a society? And that question of, is this the most burdensome, challenge we have to the country? How do we solve it, if we must solve it? Still comes up to mind. Your thoughts, Professor?
Thank you very much, Charles, and thanks a lot, colleagues, for that matter. I think, in my view, what all the other people have said, from what I'm hearing, all of them are agreeing. For example, all the three agree that alcohol is very old to human society, and as well as alcohol consumption. All the three agree that regulation of alcohol consumption is equally historical. Even my neighbor, Honorable Komolite and LB, has not refused regulation. In any case, you are already regulated. So I don't know what the complaint is. So if UB, is it Nile Breweries, is already regulated, is already licensed, is already doing everything that Honorable Pendi's bill wants to do. In my view, all the three are agreeing. They're on the same plane. I think the issue that you always get, of course, the statistics you read are very clear. According to WHO, the alcohol consumption per capita is 9.5. We are the leaders in the region. But actually, when you go to the illicit things and the informally produced things, we are ranked at 89% consumption. Wow. So in the region, we are the leading consumers, but also we lead in alcohol-related death and consequences and harms and things like that. So in short, we must do something about it. But as you say, discussions around alcohol are very delicate. As you've heard, he has emphasized they are the second, even yourself, they're the second leading taxpayers. Okay? Maybe they are the reason we are here on UBC today. So they are very important. When you look at many people, when they talk about how they made it through school, it was largely because either their mothers brewed something or so it is that kind of thing which is very accessible to the small-time households to produce and make money. So there is that side. So we can talk about the direct benefits of engaging in alcohol production and consumption, in that Nile breweries will pay more tax to the country, and maybe all of us who enjoy tax, we shall appreciate that. Then the poor households will be able to put kids in school. So the money side is there. What has not been computed in this country are the consequences, the cost of the consequences of alcohol consumption. In terms of accidents in drink driving, domestic violence, we saw a lot of it during COVID. And of course, when you talk about domestic violence, a lot of injuries go through there. The impact on the economy, the impact. Actually, when I was invited for this show, I kept hoping that we shall hear not just about how much alcohol consumption and production is actually generating to the economy. How that has to be compared to how much harm does it cost? What shall we do about computing the financial cost of alcohol-related harms? And if we are to compute that vis-a-vis the direct benefits of production and consumption, what would the scales balance? Or would we find the alcohol-related harms actually outweighing the benefits we get from alcohol? But as Honorable Pendi said, the aim of the bill is not to curtail consumption. It is to curtail or to regulate production, consumption, manufacturing, where they sell. And for all of us who have traveled, I know many people on this panel have traveled, or everyone here has traveled, world over, those aspects of alcohol are regulated. They are licensed. You can't go just to a supermarket at any time of the day and you buy wine or anything or spirits off license. Your whatever identification will be taken to see whether you're above 15. Of course, if you look like me and you're above 15 years, there will be no problem. But if you look younger, the seller would want to prove. And these are even in the most liberal economies. Yeah. They will want to prove the age of the person buying the alcohol. They will not sell it at particular times. Pubs, even in the UK today, open at particular times, so you don't just do things the way they are. And it's because there are benefits to that. So that is one thing we have to balance. What are the direct benefits vis-a-vis the costs of the alcohol-related harms? That is one thing. The other thing we need to talk about is when you're making a law, do you make it just for a few, or you make it as a law? Because for me, the beer companies, the big players are already complying. Regulated. So there's no problem. So let's make the law to bring on board those who are not complying. For us to rename the bill as the illicit whatever producing or small-time producers is classist. It is like we take a position of a moral high ground to judge those who we claim are doing everything bad. And remember, my neighbor, you have not accounted. You as a beer company, you are complying and sending it out. You are not the people who sell. You're not the people who consume it. You don't know at what time it's being sold and it's being consumed. The advantage you have is that because of its high cost, it's going to be taken by high-enders, okay? But even those high-enders, you don't know when they are drinking and when they are regulating. But we are comforted by the fact that you're already complying, so you have no problem. Let us then have a law, knowing that already the compliant have nothing to fear, but then we bring on board those who are not compliant. Try when we normally go for research in rural areas, and one thing which shocks you is after a market day, the local market day, the heap of sachet, waraji, whatever, those packages, is one of the biggest kind of waste you'll now find in a market day. If you take the eastern route after Kakira, you find those people who sell things which look like mineral water by the roadside. Actually, they're selling alcohol. So who is there in charge? We hope that maybe with this law, also those will be brought under the law. So let us not just be classist and say we only say illicit, so that at the end of the day we exclude the big players. To an extent, that's what the colonialists did. They made a law, the Nguli Acts and all the rest.
There's no law for them, so how can they be excluded?
No, so that's why you are the one who introduced the aspect of the law should be renamed.
Yes.
In my view, it should not be renamed. You're already complying. So what do you have to fear?
I want it to be renamed because right now, actually, sorry, I hope this is the mode of the show that you can interject.
Yeah.
Right now,
okay, let me
after the break.
Yes. Okay. For me,
okay,
it is like when you make, if you make a law against a crime and there is a vice, you people are already complying. You're not engaging in the vice. So there's no problem. So let us make the law for those who are non-compliant, knowing that you people are already complying. There's no problem.
And that is where his worry comes, perhaps.
His worry is on enforcement of that law.
Yes, that actually, and both Honorable Napito and Honorable Pendi said, there is the Liquor Act.
Yes.
There is the Nguli Act. Apart from the fact that the penalties are very low, the question I asked the Honorable Minister is, even with that low sentence or penalty, is there any example we can say that these 10, 100, 1,000 people have been got guilty of the act, which brings us into the aspect of, if that cannot regulate, then the regulation, as feared by Onapito, of the group he called the visible target, is a fear that is genuine.
I think that fear is not genuine. If you bring it back to the Nguli Act, the Nguli Act was not about regulating consumption. It was stopping the manufacture. That was a colonial period where you had the white man's spirit companies coming up. The Uganda Warajis, I think they had a different name before it was even renamed Uganda Waraji. I did meet the one who started it. And all other beer companies coming up. And this restriction of production of local alcohol did not only happen in Uganda. Read about it. It happened in Kenya, it happened in Zambia. Wherever the white man ruled, beer production, which was local, had to be shut down through these acts. So it was not about the concerns of people's health and social harms that Honorable Penn is talking about. They were about, this must stop because this must act as a raw material to what we are producing as a gin.
Okay.
So it was a totally different thing. It was market dynamics. What we seem to be reading in the current law that the government is coming up with, the member is coming up with, is to regulate the harms coming out. It's a different dynamic, okay? So she's already saying in her presentation, and what is written, is that already the inputs of alcohol, of the spirits around, is no longer local. So it makes the Nguli Act obsolete. My view, it was, in as much as it was colonial, it was classist. So if we bring the same thing of regulate the poor, regulate the low range, and keep these people above the law, it's propagating the same.
Charles, I think this is
no, you're already obeying, so they should not.
The fact that we are complying in the same country where there is no provision which says do not enforce the same provisions on the other people.
Yes.
It shows you that it's not lack of a law.
No.
The current, just hold on. The current provisions that we are complying with or paying tax, there is nothing which stops government to enforce it on the other people.
No, but
Can
I interject there?
We've read that law, but you're speaking in my time.
Just hold on. Can I illustrate my point?
Yeah.
That this is diversionary. The real challenge is government has failed to use the existing provisions to control illicit. And you think by merely producing another law, it will control them by itself. Just hold on, Honorable Pendi. If there is, for example, a law on excise which says all the other alcohol should be paying excise, and the rate is there. We pay the excise, the other people don't pay. Not because there is no law. There is a law which says you must have a digital tax stamp if you produce alcohol. It applies to us. It is not being implemented. So the challenge right now is implementing provisions that are controlling us, and we are complying on the other people. Not just making another redundant law. No. You fail to implement it on the other people, then you put it on another law.
Can I interject to help my sister?
With information.
Yes, I'm giving information. I think what my brother Onapito has failed to appreciate is the fact that the current laws, as they are not, they have penalties that are not prohibitive.
Then why don't you?
You can't have a fine.
I'm going to bring in.
You can't have a fine of 3,000.
I'm coming to you. If a law is weak, you look for its weakness and then you amend it accordingly. Why don't you then amend the Nguli Act if you think it is good enough, except the magnitude of the punishment?
Yep.
Why don't you amend that if it is good enough? That's what I'm saying, and I'm saying if,
and it's
in order to address the magnitude of the punishment, in order for it to be, what do they call it? In order for it to be
punitive enough.
Punitive enough. Thank you very much.
You see, what we are trying to do is to have one alcohol control bill, because I talked about the Nguli Act, I talked about the Liquor Act, the Wines and Spirits Act.
Yeah.
You know, these are 3 pieces of legislation all scattered there. So why don't we have one bill, one law that will actually consolidate that will deal with the alcohol as a whole, other than now, should we go and amend the Nguli Act? Then we go and amend the Liquor Act, then go and amend the Wines and Spirit Act? I think that is tedious work.
For us, we are saying,
but also,
can I finish?
Enforce the existing law.
let me hold the fire of Honorable Pendi and Honorable Onapito, and Professor Sarah winds up so that I bring Sarah.
Yes, thank you very much. And it's good for us to know that the problem we have here, I think, is understanding what compliance is. Because the compliance being discussed on this panel is around paying tax. No one is debating that. What I've read in the draft bill is more than paying tax. It's regulating things like age of consumption, time of consumption. This is something that even the producer who is complying with tax and excise duties and all of that cannot take control over.
We already,
if you want,
doing that.
Can you hold on? If you want,
hold on.
If you want to change behavior, and by the alcoholism is a behavioral matter. Okay? There are 2 things you can do. You can either deal with the individual, hoping in the liberalized Uganda that we are adults and we all understand what is good and we can regulate ourselves. That is one way, but we have evidence has shown that that's not being done by everybody. The other, if you cannot regulate individuals, you regulate the context in which the individuals are operating. And world over, alcohol laws regulate the context,
the circumstance.
That is where they regulate the age of who can consume, the times of who can consume, who can produce, when do you sell off license, when do you sell on license. So we should understand compliance and regulation beyond simply paying taxes. That one is good and it's appreciated.
We have a code.
But by
we have a code.
Honorable neighbor,
we have a code which shows
honorable neighbor,
we understand all these things.
Honorable neighbor, you have no control over the time and who is consuming your beer.
And we don't intend to have it.
Yes, and Honorable Pendi's law is saying, can we regulate that as well?
Is it possible?
No. It is possible. Now that comes to implementation. So let's have the law and then move into implementation.
When we know the government of Honorable Kabianga has failed to regulate that, to enforce.
He's coming.
Okay, good. Council Sarah.
Now,
you have failed to enforce even what is there,
Charles,
which is driving Honorable Opendi to say, let us now regulate it this way. Let's consolidate and regulate it,
Charles,
and ensure that, yes.
We normally arrest all these manufacturers of illicit drinks and even destroy whatever they have produced. But I'm telling you, the charges are so low, they don't care, they go back. So it is as if it is something which has to be done every day. But also let me tell you one thing. Me, I entered a bar when I was in senior 5. I had never entered a bar, because a bar was exclusive to old men. But recently, I go back to my village. I enter a bar. All the old men were not there. Now, who is there?
Yeah.
Young people.
Yeah, because they are the majority.
Exactly. Now that's the thing. We don't, even if I arrested all of them, there is no law. I'm not going to charge them. I can only charge them for being idle and disorder. And now that's what Sir is coming. And that's what Sir is coming up
with. Councillor Sarah, thank you, Honourable Minister, for that information. Councillor Sarah Birete, like I said, this is a very, very hard to really, bring together. You're dealing with very critical issues and dynamics, the economy, social life, lifestyle, freedoms, and that is your area of your purview of practice, freedoms and their limitation. How do you think this should be managed? Do we need this law? What aspects of it do we need? From regulation, licensing, whether you're controlling, whatever word you want to use, how do we go about it, in your view?
Maybe first with a disclaimer that even with the fundamental rights and freedoms, there are limitations. You cannot say that it's my freedom to commit suicide. A government which has a duty to protect the life of citizens has a duty to prevent you from committing suicide if they get to know.
Actually, in the past, they would kill you.
Yes, but even when they detect that you are suicidal, they have a duty to make sure they stop you from committing suicide. So, Honorable Napito rightly said that alcohol contributes to the economy. It has social and economic benefits, which nobody is refuting. But do we let society drink itself to suicidal elements because you are paying tax? Do we let society become unproductive and recklessness and useless because you are the second biggest taxpayer? I think those are the questions we must interrogate as a country. No, you will come in on a bit. Can you please behave?
It is not our product which is causing that damage.
Can you please behave? No. We are not saying it is you.
But you are
You will come in. You will come in and
that we will pay the second largest tax.
No, I'm saying that's not a justification to destroy society. It is not a justification to destroy society.
But can I also protect?
That is my point. No, okay.
Sarah, when you say the fact that you are the second biggest, and we are talking about alcohol generally, and there are thousands of producers, then you have gone personal.
No,
and he has the right. And
he was saying that we are he said it, that they are the biggest. We know you are the biggest.
So then address them generally.
Yes, no, what I was saying.
Alcohol.
I was responding to his submission.
Yes.
Those are some of his strengths he's putting forward. But the common good comes before. Before the tax, before the employment, the common good is number one. So when you look at our neighboring countries, Kenya regulates, I think Kenya out of East Africa has more control.
Yeah.
You can discuss the enforcement. Bars open at 5 and close at 11. entertainment centers have special licenses to operate overnight. And Kenya, no wonder, it's the biggest economy in East Africa. It is a giant. I have just online, you see statements of presidents expressing concern. We are becoming, you know, an alcoholic country. We are going to fail, to fall back on the economy. I'm sure even in Kenya, alcohol pays tax. But their concern, primary concern, is the productivity of the citizenry. It is not the size of tax. Because with a more productive citizenry, you can indeed have a better economy, and that's demonstrated in Kenya. And I wish to invite Honorable Pendi that in your benchmarking, those are some of the countries you need to visit. In Sweden, where of course there are more freedoms, they are more enjoy. They don't have challenges like using hot flat irons on people's chests. But
how does that come in?
No, maybe the people are under the influence of alcohol. But in Sweden, because of the cashless economy, they have a quota. How much alcohol can you purchase a week? You can't exceed your quota. And of course, they are able to detect. So first is the age. Second is the time. They purchase alcohol during weekends. 3 is the quota. How much can you purchase? So these are some of the benchmarking that we need to do as a country for the greater common good, not just on individuals, a list who is where, who is taxed. We need to assess our alcoholic, consumption levels. We have been topping the charts. We top the charts in East Africa, we top the charts in Africa. We are among the top 10 from 2010 to today. We have been among the top 10 alcohol consumers.
Can I ask something that looks, there is something that we celebrate. Onapito usually says that producers of alcohol ensure that there is happiness. But there is also, the last I think 3 years, Uganda has been ranked as the most happy country in the region and Africa. And in Africa. So is that a bad coincidence?
No, it is not just alcohol. When Churchill called Uganda the Pearl of Africa, was it because of alcohol? We are generally hospitable people. No, it's the that is index. Historical, no, but it wasn't as a result of the happiness index. What I'm saying is when we were named the Pearl of Africa, it wasn't because of alcohol. How do you know that? We are happy people, I know.
What was the specific reason, Zara?
No, because of the nature, we are hospitable, we are sociable. And you can tell the difference. We all know that when we travel, you easily tell the difference between the characteristics of Ugandans and the characteristics of other people, and it has nothing to do with alcohol. No. So we shouldn't again cause confusion at that level.
In my view, even if they were, correlating,
yes,
that our topping the happiness index, as well as our topping the alcohol consumption, even if the correlation was true, what is the consequence of that to the people being more productive?
But are the drunkards the most happiest?
Yeah, they're permanently happy and they have drugged themselves.
No, when they are drunk, it's temporary. It is temporary. You can call it mental even.
Charles.
No, I am coming, please. Yes. So, please, we need to assess. There are reports of World Health Organization. These are evidence-based reports on the dangers of alcohol to society. We know that alcohol does more harm to democracy, human rights, and it is an obstacle to development. I have visited districts in Uganda, and I will mention one is Tororo, another one is Apache. You completely get shocked. Men, able-bodied men, wake up in the morning, sit in their mwesho, those small huts, consume alcohol and pray mwesho at the morning. And I'm like, okay, if it wasn't for human rights, why does somebody beat up these people? They derive and productivity.
At least you can recommend that they beat them.
No, but they need to stop that. I mean, how do you just wake up? You're not sick, you are able-bodied, you call yourself a head of a family, and all you do is drink and pray mweso? And you are waiting. Even some people collect mangoes at ranch because they have no food. And that's the country where we are saying it is okay, we are happy. Which happiness is that?
Okay.
That's why domestic.
Thank you very much. I just came actually this evening. I came straight from a patch, and then we traveled with a group of MPs, and they are doing supervision on some solar project that government is doing with a private company called Nexus Limited, Nexus Green. And what you're saying is something that we engaged with, the discussions on. I was in a patch in Lira. Of course, these things are happening everywhere. But there is also a sad one that I was told by, actually, we met the Honorable Daniel Omara Tubo. And he was telling us that one of the things that has come up now that is shocking, and he was appealing to some of the MPs, your colleagues, that they should try to address, that recently there has been an increasing wave of robberies. And they discovered that students, young students in schools now escape and then go and rob and go back to school. And when they started trying to find out that many of them are abusing, you know, some of these different substances, and including smoking and all that, it is a big thing to worry. We shall probably comment on different. I need us to go for a break.
We take 3 times more alcohol than Kenya per capita.
Okay, good. I've been told we need to pay some of our bills as well. I am sure that one of those bills, Nile Breweries and the team ensure that. Let's go for a break right now. When we come back, the discussion and free interaction will ensue after this break in the second segment. But let's take that break now.
To the wrong person. Here's how to reverse it with MTN mobile money. Dial *165#. Select My Account. Select Initiate Reversal. You will see your last 3 transactions. Select the transaction you want to reverse. Enter your mobile money PIN, and you'll get an SMS confirmation that the transaction has been blocked from being withdrawn. And that's it. Please note, only transactions that haven't been withdrawn can be reversed.
This isn't just a girl. She is the future. This is a teacher, a doctor, a community leader, our future president.
This is our family's pride.
This is my friend.
This is the future of our nation.
She is the future of Uganda, and the policies I enact today will protect her from teenage pregnancy.
She is the hope of our community, and I will talk to others about how we must protect her.
She is our family's pride, and I will protect her from child marriage and talk to her about the dangers of teenage pregnancy. We each have a role to play in empowering our teenage girls to protect them from child marriage and pregnancy, because when we empower them, we empower our nation. Protect the girl, save the nation.
Their support, not so much to me. I stayed focused and was protected from child marriage and teenage pregnancy. I will support other girls against child marriage and teenage pregnancy.
Take action. Report any case of defilement or child marriage to the police or call Sawuti 116.
strength of a nation.
Let me just say.
Accessing your contacts the old way.
Yeah.
Accessing your contacts with the My Airtel app. You have the power in your pocket. The power to access your favorite contacts.
Franz Fanon said, "Each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it." I know a man who, in fulfilling his life's mission, has raised the foundations of many generations.
With Kampala captured and the leader of the National Resistance Army, Yoweri Museveni, now president, their task is to move forward until they make contact with the UNLA troops.
Do you see the NRM as being naturally aligned to either the East or the West in particular?
No, we are aligned with Uganda and with Africa. This assumption of the Western countries or of some outside countries that we must either be for the East or for the West is actually racist, to say the least, because we have got our own interests, and these are the ones we are pushing. And if we have got allies, those who agree with us, as far as our interests are concerned, then they are our friends.
It's true what people say, that when I wash and you wash your hand with soap, we'll have less infections as Ugandans. After all, it's hands that handle money. It's hands that feed us. Hands that prepare soil for farming. Hands that we use to learn. And hands that we use for fun.
When I wash and you wash hands with soap, it means clean hands for all. This is a message from the National Hand Washing Secretariat.
Are you tired of high fees and slow transfer time when sending money? Look no further. Airtel Money is here to revolutionize the way you move your money. We have priced the rates, and now sending money from Airtel to other networks in Uganda, East Africa, and to the rest of the world has never been more affordable. Plus, you can trust Airtel Money to get your money where it needs to go quickly and safely. Simply dial *185# and start sending money. Switch to Airtel Money today and experience unbeatable rates and top-notch services for all your local and international money transfer needs. Airtel Money, instant, secure, borderless.
Welcome back from the break. This is Behind the Headlines, and we are discussing the proposed the Alcohol Control Bill 2022, a bill that is sponsored by Honorable Sarah Opendi, Tororo Woman MP. She is here with us in the studio. We have the Honorable Minister of State in charge of national guidance, Honorable Godfrey Kabyanga. We have Honorable Onapito Ekomoloit, who is the Director in charge of legal and corporate affairs at Nile Breweries. We have Professor Sarah Sally from Makerere University, and Council Sarah Birete. During the break, I just need to tell the panel that we are into the second segment, and it is now okay to engage freely. feel free to interrupt, to interject, but with respect, and let's listen to one another. But it's important that at any one time you speak for 1 or 2 minutes maximum so that we can have as many contributions as possible. Now, Jackson, I need to read some 2 or 3 interesting messages that some of you viewers have sent during the break. Jackson Odongtho from Kumi municipality. I was in Kumi on Monday, and the place is really dry currently. But Jackson says, alcohol control and regulation is a good idea. But how is the proposed bill, I mean, this is a bill already, proposed law, going to address corruption, which is the biggest challenge in this country? How does the illicit alcohol get into Uganda and into communities in the first place? How can we address fake investors in the alcohol industry? And then he says, I hope that the panel, Ona, Opendi, Sarah Birete, and the other Sarah, how can you answer these questions that are bothering me? And then Crispy Kaheru, thank you very much. All the way from Abuja, you're watching us. Thank you very much, and we also congratulate you. Crispy has been appointed as an election to the Election Observer Mission, and where he will be for the African Union, where he will be deputizing the former president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, as an election observer expert. Thank you very much, Crispy Kaheru, for always watching behind the headlines. I'm going to shortly get the producer to give us the questions and comments that are coming from all of you and incorporate them into the discussion. Now, we are coming to the second part of the show. Ona, there are a number of things that you were not pleased with that you wanted to respond to. I want to give you 1 minute to respond to them, and then also Honorable Sarah Opendi. I don't know who wants to start first, but Ona, you had.
I think, Charles, for me the main thing is that I say that the alcohol category that I represent, which is what everyone is actually looking at in terms of visibility, as a code of conduct.
Already.
That actually takes care of most of the concerns that are stated in the bill, the social aspects in terms of age. If you listen to our commercials religiously, and it's enforced in the house, they must always have that caution on age.
Alcohol consumption
should never be sold.
Is
we train our retailers to
Who
observe.
enforces it?
Just hold on. We train our retailers to observe this fact. We also are very mindful of the fact that alcohol consumption or alcohol abuse is a behavioral factor. So we constantly educate our consumers, because, and there have been so many other vices that the country has dealt with. Let's take, for example, the HIV/AIDS pandemic. At its height, the concerted effort was about educating, about abstaining, faithfulness, and all the cautions.
The treatment.
Nobody ever said there are times when it is safer. Because there is no safe time if you do it the wrong way. All times are bad. But it's also safer all times if you do it the right way. You know? So that is something that must be appreciated, that alcohol is not different. I mean, alcohol abuse is not different from a lot of other abuses. Abuse of food, abuse of what? These are consistent patterns that we have also, for example, realized many people think it's peer pressure which influences abuse or over drinking. It's actually family. Parents are the most important factor. And if we really want to address abuse in this country, we must use the same patterns. We have a professor here, the same patterns of behavioral change, which have been tried, some have worked, some have not, must be persistently applied to alcohol abuse as well. And we do it as an industry. So it is not fair to think that we are not mindful of this. But I want to repeat our concern, that if you make a law which where all other regulations are not being implemented, the same vigilance with which we are complaining, for example, we complained to URA that you brought a digital tax stamp, which has increased our costs, but you are only enforcing it on us whom you can easily find. Our address is known, so you come and you can pick, you can find, but you are not taking enough effort to look for the other majority who are even doing worse things. Yeah. So we fear and we know that this law, after it has been enacted, all the provisions that you think are good will only be applied to people who don't even, so there will be over-vigilance to a dangerous extent. Okay. So we are saying, before we go to that, can we first, right now, try to register all the alcohol in the country? Because there is Kasese, there is Lerarera. Why can't we register them?
Kombucha.
There is a whole administration of LCs. The whole LC system is there. Can't we use it first or register all alcohol in the country? We can't even do something as simple as that. Okay. We think if there's a law which is made nationally, then it will enforce itself. It won't happen.
Honorable Opendi, you have had that very passionate presentation from Honorable Onapito. Can I give an example to illustrate that fear and to ask you to respond to it? We all know the POMA, the so-called POMA, the Public Order Management Act. I was in Parliament when you were passing it, and I remember the discussions and the intentions were far different from what turned out to be the abuse of the law, where every policeman and every law enforcer decided to start to throw it at every gathering, including, small gatherings of, someone was saying even family members, that including indoor, that the intention was not to control and stop meetings or gatherings, but to, regulate certain kind of political assemblies and all that. But nonetheless, it is being abused. That is what you lawmakers agreed on. So it is potentially true that even Onapito's worry could be well placed. What do you say about that? And the fact that he is appealing to you that there are certain things that you should do, in good faith before you come up with this law.
My brother, the Honorable Onapito, and those that he represents, I want to ask them to relax and be at peace. Because you are already compliant. So why should you be actually worried if you're already compliant? Allow us to proceed and come up with a law that will be good for every individual, for the family, for the community, and the government. Because while we are looking at the revenue that the 35% or so, the regulated alcohol brewers.
I think they have 56%.
56? No.
No, that's what I was saying.
No. It is not.
They are less.
It is
They
less
are
than
less.
that, yeah.
Okay.
It is less than that. Just about 35%. That revenue, if we regulated all those producing alcohol, they licensed them, the revenue would increase. Actually, it is estimated that government is losing over 600 billion shillings in revenue because of these illicit alcohol. Those producing alcohol, they are not regulated, they are not licensed. But also, most importantly, any person, any responsible person in this country should support a law like this. Because let us not talk about the enforcement, we have failed here. Let us have the law first. And we are going to task the different stakeholders. The enforcement is not going to only be the police. The local governments are there.
Yeah.
Some of the local governments created today, by the way, don't even have sources of revenue. But you have people producing liquor within those sub-counties or town councils, not paying any taxes. That would be some revenue collected that could actually support them in the operations of these town councils and sub-counties and so on.
Can they,
now, when you look
can they, for example, apply the current trading license to make those people pay? Why do you need a separate trading license for alcohol?
Well, you see, you are talking about a bill that I yet don't have. I have told you I am consulting.
Okay.
If I ask you to give me my bill now, you don't have it. Those, whatever you're seeing around, was just a draft to enable us generate or come up with discussions. So, allow us to move. And then the issue of enforcement will be a different matter. But let's look at the Tobacco Control Act. When it was being processed, it was also a private member's bill, by the way. Today, you are not going to find people like before smoking anywhere in public. You can actually walk this city and you will not find people anywhere smoking. Previously, I am allergic to cigarettes. I used to sneeze every other minute and I had flu every other time. You are in a public transport, people are smoking. You can't stop them. You're on the street moving, somebody is smoking ahead of you. You are everywhere, people are smoking. So let us not say that enforcement will be a problem.
Okay.
Let's have the law and then we can move.
Okay.
But let us also know that in this country, 55% of our population are young people below the age of 18. 55%. And when you look at the statistics, currently, the first age at which the children are getting into contact or consuming alcohol is 8 years. Can you imagine an 8-year-old consuming alcohol? And when you look at the alcohol consumption per capita for the 15-year-olds, it is much more higher than the national average of alcohol consumed by the general population, which is at 9.5%. Now, the 15-year-olds, it is 12.5%. Shouldn't that worry any responsible person? Do we want to see a generation of wasted people? And these people are going to be a danger to the few who will actually be working in this country.
Okay.
Is that what we want to see?
Are the kids drinking? If, as
they
you
are
say?
drinking.
No, are
And
they?
the
No,
honorable-
I'm saying, are they drinking because of absence of the law, or we are looking at symptoms of bigger problems?
No, you see, they
family dysfunctionality, unemployment. These are all problems to address.
No, but they are drinking. This alcohol is not free. It is not water.
Alcohol causes
family dysfunctionality. So those are the consequences of alcohol.
And the other way
Alcohol
around.
is not free. These children are getting money from somewhere to consume this alcohol. It's not water.
And
that you're
there are
going to
people
go to a
who
river and
drink
get.
as a release mechanism to hide away from their depression and problems.
Instead of confronting the depression. So they are hiding away. Those are some of the problems.
So they are using alcohol to hide.
And can I just amplify what
Can I conclude?
Yes.
I just wanted to conclude with the health complications. Alcohol is contributing to the non-communicable diseases in this country, the people amongst the population. It is also contributing to the communicable diseases. We've talked about HIV/AIDS. The HIV/AIDS is still rampant and increasing in the population, partially because the young people who I've talked about, who are the majority, are consuming alcohol, which is readily available, cheap, packaged cheaply, 200 mils with your 500 shillings or 1,000. You can actually get a kombucha, a whatever they call them, wisdom. They have all kinds of names in the villages.
I know.
It is packaged. So they have, what is the other one? Tyson, all kinds of things. So you have access to this alcohol that you consume and you don't take control of yourself once you have consumed the alcohol.
There is one called, I think, Stinger.
now.
Yeah, stinger, yes.
I usually
That's
see
an
it.
energy
I
drink.
usually see it with drivers, mostly
That's an energy
drivers.
drink.
I'm told it.
They all get mixed
prevents, It prevents sleep.
Okay.
But I need to come back to you, Professor and Councillor Sarah, and also the Minister. But I've got there are too many messages and comments, questions. So let me endeavor to just read a few. There is someone called Dominic, and he says he's from Mutungo. He says, Charles, good evening. My greetings to all those panelists. I come from Eastern Uganda, where alcohol is the livelihood of most of the people there. My honorable member of Pendi, before you table this bill, you should also see on how to help that mother who won't be able to pay for a license to do her business. Please, Mama, I am a product of Waraji and Adere. What is Adere?
Adere is calabash.
Is the calabash?
Yeah. The one for
so he says, look at those women in Kasoli, you know, and we all know these people need solutions better than the ones for that reason. Uganda is unique in her own way. We are always the best in things, including alcohol consumption. We are number 2 after Nigeria. Eating, he says, eating P1G, we are number 2 after China. In terms of unemployment and joblessness, we are also leading. Teenage pregnancy. So it is better if such bills come up. So he says, Toto Pendi, Eyalama Noi Noi. That is Dominic. Someone called Daniel says, thanks for the topical discussion. My proposal is that, like Honor has said, it should be illicit alcohol control bill. Because illicit is unsafe and they are evading taxes. The beer industry is already well regulated and paying huge taxes to this economy. On the other side, some people work at night and drink, and they need beer during the day. No, and they need beer during the day when they work at night. I suggest we strengthen the control of illicit liquor. Sam from Tororo says, unguided missile, but my brother Onapito does not even take the alcohol his clients. That's why can't we regulate Honor? Otherwise, I am happy to see you on the show. This is Ramadan from Barar.
He doesn't drink.
That's an allegation.
Then he says, I thank Professor is the one who has matched Honor today. There are OBs and OGs. Then Paul from Bududa says, thanks for this timely bill. I think we need to, please let us include in that bill a comprehensive ban on alcohol advertising and promotion. We need to use real pictures of real drunkards in marketing. And then someone called Rukundo says, Charles, thanks, I am watching you from Nyanama. I totally agree with Honorable Sarah. I think, and then Julius from Entebbe. Julius from Entebbe says, good evening, behind the headlines. It's good. The alcohol bill that is in the offing is good, only that it doesn't address the social challenges like high school dropout rate, lack of employment, which to me makes people lack focus and resort to drinking. Uganda's problems are not laws, but implementation. The regulation can only work on companies that are known and legally registered. But how do you regulate what you do not know or what you do not have? The question should be, why have we become alcoholics? Solution, create jobs, ensure children are in school, but it's not only men who drink. Even percentage of women drinking has also increased. Given the, we need to balance the control with the benefits, as Honorable Onapito has suggested. And then Sam from Kampala says, question to Mr. Onapito. Why are you throwing out our Congo thing under the bus? Our Congo?
Congo.
Congo.
Congo. Congo. Congo. I didn't know he was writing it in Luo. I thought there was another alcohol called Congo. But he says, why are you throwing our Congo thing under the bus when you know very well that it has been part and parcel of our culture for centuries, long before any beer or wine was ever made in Uganda? I think this person is talking about the illicit things. That owner is targeting those ones.
No.
Tom is watching from Bukwa district. Tom, thank you. Tom says, I concur with the Honorable Napito to change the name to illicit alcohol control bill. Otherwise, we seriously need this law in place. There are a number of mushrooming illicit alcohol brewers around us. Thanks, Odongtho. Thank you so much too, Tom. Thanks for watching. Asaba says, I'm Asaba. I am a senior bar manager in Kabalagala. There is drinking and there is over drinking. Then he says, there is brewed and distilled alcohol.
Yes.
It provides job opportunities to our youth. The problem is illicit alcohol, locally brewed and packed with a lot of impurities. Thanks, good show. Elijah from Teso says, there are so many issues affecting Ugandans which Parliament ought to discuss than the alcohol control bill. Ugandans should at least have their freedom. Then Bonnie from Lira says, Charles, I want to congratulate Honorable Sarah Opendi, Mama Uganda, for coming up with the bill. There are so many messages and comments, but we need to go back to the panel, and then if time allows, I will read more questions and comments as they are flowing in. Professor Sarah, you had wanted to come back in, and then I bring in your colleague Sarah and the minister.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, the Honorable Member of Parliament had talked about the initial fear by Honorable Napito was around enforcement, and the Honorable Sarah Opendi said actually it can be done through the local governments, and I want to agree with that. If you look at our local government structure, you have district population officers, you have quantitative economics. These are people who run through UBOS. We are always having Uganda National Household Surveys. If you have a small farm in the village, the district farm vet officer or the assistant will know where things are. So in my view, enforcement is possible. All you have to do is to activate the government structure beyond the police, which might want to extort. But going back, we need to understand that we have not always been a society of beer drinkers and whatever. As the commentator said, traditionally we had alcohol, and we had traditional forms of alcohol, and they had their regulations. And there were no problems. People drank marwa, went back home. There were rules on how you...
Normal on weekends.
There were rules on how you brewed, how you marketed, and how you consumed marwa, and how you behaved after you had taken marwa. What we are dealing with are things which have cropped up over time. And because those things don't have traditional structures to regulate their consumption, we are seeing everyone claiming for rights. We also need to remember that until we went neoliberal, starting 1987, actually alcohol consumption was very regulated in this country. That's where you'll find the older people complaining about having to get cheats to access certain drinks. Of course, our country was limited, and it was a sad moment of our economy. But the response to that was to go to the extreme, the other extremes, opposite end, which is they have rights, everybody is free to do what they want, and neoliberalism. It cannot continue like that. rules, there have to be rules. And things like some of the things which have changed and modified behavior over time beyond neoliberalism are things like advertising. I imagine in the 70s, if you gave people marwa and beer, many would have preferred marwa. But because of excessive marketing of beers and wines, people are going to that. So if the new law comes up and regulates that, that is fine. So for me, in my view, this law should be put in place. We shall not fear to put a law because the rest of us are complying. The reason laws exist are not for the compliant people. The laws exist for those who are likely to commit crimes. You cannot say Uganda government don't put a law on theft because I'm not a thief. Just regulate for the others. So you put laws for those, for the weakest link, for where there might be abuses. And now when that law comes in place, because the purpose of the law is to communicate the moral compass of a society. When the law comes in place, then it's the duty of the structure of that society, the leadership structures, to make sure that it works. And we can begin with that. If we can actually advertise properly, like the commentator said, not with just this wonderful cup of good morning, good night. Let us have the actual drinkers there, and we see how they look like. Let us have the actual things, like how the tobacco people advertise. And people can still make those choices, but with the knowledge. So in short, we are not, Honorable is not saying we should not produce alcohol. People have come out of that economy, and it has made many people. But can we regulate? We cannot send one child to school out of alcohol while sending 10 families down the abyss, down into domestic violence, down into defilement and all the other things. So let's make a law not exclusive for some, the compliant ones, we thank you, continue complying, not just in paying taxes, but also in regulating your retailers as you're doing and more. But let us bring everybody on board. Thank you.
Yeah, Honorable Minister, there is someone here from Dan, he's called Dan from Juba, and he says, this is a good debate on alcohol. While the economic and social gains of alcohol production plus freedoms to consume it are being endorsed by the panelists, little is being said about quantifying its harm in Ugandan society. Dan, the professor said it. And then he says it is vital that the statistics on the tax gains by the government from legal alcohol sales are weighed against its harm in society, and the comparison of the two dynamics should guide whatever regulatory laws on its production, licensing, and consumption that the Honorable Pendi would like to introduce. Honorable Minister, is it possible to do such a study? Is it easy?
Yeah, such a study can be done because it's easy to get the data, and already there is some data about that. I was reading, for instance, they know even the number of deaths which occur because of alcohol consumption. It's already known. For instance, I was reading that 9.8% of deaths among the youth is caused by alcohol. So all that can be done. But it's also important to note that most of the panelists here, except Onam, have agreed that really the dangers of alcohol outweigh the...
They were mobilized by Honorable Sarah Pendi. That's why only Sarah came along.
They outweigh the benefits. And to this here, Charles, the biggest problem of alcohol right now is productivity of the population. The population is now becoming totally unproductive because of alcohol. If you go to the countryside, you can't even get people to do casual work because most of the youth are drunk, wasted. Look at even the border riders. Most of these accidents which are happening, and you know the youth are now in the borders here in Kampala, even up country. But when you look at most of the accidents, you meet that half of those accidents are caused by either drug abuse or alcohol abuse. So you can't have a young population which is totally unproductive because of alcohol, and you think you're going to improve the economy. So I think this law is timely, is very timely, but owner should be calm. He should sweet talk Honorable Pendi, but we also need to have an inclusive law, a comprehensive law. Yeah. We shouldn't have so many laws talking about the same thing. I think that's why Honorable Pendi is saying, let us integrate all those laws into one. And at the end of the day, when this bill is passed into law, the happiest person will be owner. Yeah. Because that illicit drink production will be highly regulated and controlled, and therefore the owners
will have a better market.
He will have a better market. Yeah. And now you can even change strategy and probably produce smaller bottles which
the packaging has to be dealt with also.
That's the reason many people could increase
consumption. So one thinks that a portable must have half a liter, so that's
something you cannot push in the pocket and move with.
Yeah, because people are putting it in the pocket.
Can I shock you that there was I knew of a very important person. Yes. Who would go to Parliament with the circuits in the jacket?
But even recently, an MP was dragged in Parliament, so that one is not that one is not new.
Yeah.
What I can say is we can get all that statistics, and to be very sincere, yes, we need the money, but this money will be useless if we don't have a productive population. Because even if we put it in infrastructure, who is going to use that infrastructure to improve the economy? Okay. Those young people are really intoxicated with those illicit drinks. But the most important thing, they are also causing a big health hazard. Because it's not actually alcohol. I don't know how we can call it. I don't know the definition of alcohol. I'm not a scientist.
Sometimes
but this is not alcohol. It is some mixture of what? Of chemicals that people are putting in their body.
Yeah, but
yes.
Charles, I think Onapito raises one important point, which on lack of implementation for laws. Whereas laws are important and the 2 points are not the same, but I think it's a point that we also need to interrogate. Our legislators lack capacity to do legislative audit. You can't just make bills as a method of ticking a box. We have this, and you call it success when there is zero implementation of those laws. You should have a time per year and say we have made these laws. What change has happened? Because you are making laws to create change in society. Are they being implemented? Are they being followed? Is there observance? Like now we have a crisis of the Constitution. And the primary duty of Parliament is to implement and promote the Constitution. But do you even take one session to sit and say who is violating our Constitution? And you call them to order. So it's not a matter of ticking a box that you want to calculate the number of bills you have and laws. Can we have implementation? And can you have a legislative audit to assess whether you are making impact through those laws?
Charles, before Honorable Sarah answers, for me, I still want to put it on record that as an industry, we are not accepting that this law is important at this point, if I may qualify it. The devil will be in the details. Honorable Sarah now is conveniently saying everything you have seen is just a draft. But we have to react to what we have seen. So we shall continue reacting to every stage of this law. And we hope members of Parliament will keep their eyes open. They speak for the people. What we don't want, we repeat, is curtailing the freedom of choice. We don't want curtailing freedom of trading for small scale, because there are small scale traders, women, widows and what, who sell our beer alongside other things, Porsche, beans. Now if you say you must get another license and they can't afford, then police comes and rounds off beer from them. Just hold on. Police goes and rounds off beer from them. We are the ones who are going to be impacted. And other people in the value chain, including government treasury, will be impacted. So we shall look at the details of your proposals. And if we think they are not reasonable, we shall do everything to alert the country, to alert members of parliament that this is the trick.
Okay.
You don't want us to play the Arab and the camel. Put the nose, then eventually knock out alcohol.
If you asked the monkey about cutting the forests, and the discussion is on, definitely you don't expect the monkey to agree to that proposal.
We are very,
it's going to.
the
forest definitely is
monkeys can be trained,
so
and we think we're very well trained monkey. We know the value of the forest, and we shall protect.
And where they should cut. Which trees are softer and are easier.
You mean the monkey cannot even say you cut the other branch? That the other one is too bushy.
So, but the point I want to make is that I'm glad that you were reading comments that were coming from people that we don't know. And almost all the people who submitted, whether they were SMSs or WhatsApp messages, their comments were agreeing that we have to regulate alcohol.
No. Just
honestly, and even on a
it was a split vote at minimum. It was a split vote.
It was
this is rigging. This is rigging on air.
95% of the people that submitted their comments were actually agreeing with the regulation of alcohol. And even Onapito agrees, by the way, with the regulation of alcohol.
That's why he doesn't take.
No, that's a different matter.
And he doesn't even
Actually, the fact that being spotlighted for teetotaling proves that we who are in the alcohol industry, first of all, do not believe that all people should drink alcohol. It should be for only those who choose, and they must be adults. And let's respect their intelligence. So me, who is a teetotaler, cannot claim that a person who seeks to drink a beer at 8 a.m. is stupid.
Can I
so long as they're intelligent.
Can I then ask why you are involved in heavy advertising?
Oh, let's go to that one.
Advertising is extremely heavy.
And this is the trick again.
That is partially the reason why we are seeing people getting attracted.
And again,
drinking these,
when you now say you want to control advertising, you'll
I
be looking at
I'm
billboard.
Controlling. I am only saying you have said it must be a choice.
Yes.
That you don't encourage people to drink, but it is your decision to drink alcohol. So how can it be?
Not that we don't encourage. We say we don't want necessarily to force them.
Yes, you don't want to force them. But if the advert is so persuasive, what happens next?
Actually, the advert is about choosing our brands, not to say drink alcohol, but choose ours if you want to drink.
It depends on how you see
it. I like there are over 150 messages here, but there is this one I have come across from John Santos, and he says, Charles, please tell Onapito not to waste his breath arguing against Honorable Pendi's proposed law. Let Honorable Pendi pass it, and for us, we shall just disobey it. Just like other good laws that we have disregarded, that don't worry, be happy. He's called John Santos.
But can I conclude?
Please go ahead.
Something that we have maybe not talked about are some of the things that must be prohibited. We have seen people lose their lives through uniformed men in bars, drinking.
Yes,
so that should be something that should be prohibited. No person must sell alcohol to a person in uniform.
You are putting that in the law?
Yes.
It's part of it. Which uniform?
No uniform. I mean, if the police, the army,
not selling to passengers.
Then another okay, just hold on.
Yes.
There is another one here, Honorable Pendi. This is Nathan from Lira.
Yeah.
He says, who will enforce that law? At one time, a police officer arrested a suspect whom he found drinking the white drink. The police officer first grabbed the bottle as he commanded the suspect to climb the vehicle. He first drank it faster at a very high speed.
Of course, just there was always a joke. There's always been a joke throughout time that if you're caught for violating the Nguli Act, you don't need to worry. Because by the time you're produced in court, there will be no evidence. Because as the police take it, they dilute it with water. So that's the same kind of thing. But doesn't stop us coming up with it.
Yes, Honorable Pendi.
Yeah, so there must be those, even the selling of alcohol to children below 18 years, it has been rampant, completely rampant. We've seen some children being
including
sent,
those who fought. You know, if you could see the videos of that young girl,
yes,
everybody was shocked when the mother says she's 18 and she was all over pointing bars red. So you wonder how.
Yes, that other girl. She was just a bit. You can see
she's a child,
she's quite young.
14 years.
Pretty Nicole.
Yeah. So there must be those things that we must prohibit, those actions that we must prohibit, and that will help us. Of course, even the selling of, the drinking of alcohol in private vehicles. We've seen road accidents caused by people because they are drinking and driving, and even the Northern Bypass, we've lost people there. And when they go to check the car, full of bottles of all kinds of liquor. So that is conduct that must be prohibited. The selling of liquor, even in public vehicles, it's going on. That must be prohibited. So the law cannot only look at the illicit alcohol, but also certain things that will be prohibited.
Okay.
And for us, drinking of alcohol can be your choice, but if you're going to be a danger to others, like recently, I moved to Garden City at 10 in the morning. What did I find? Young people. The table was full of all kinds of liquor at 10 a.m. in Garden City. And I was moving with my young niece. I said, you take a photo quickly. We took the photo, I have the evidence. 10 a.m. in the morning. Now imagine by midday what will happen to these people. They may get on a vehicle and go home. So what happens on the road?
Yeah.
These are the people causing all kinds of accidents on our roads. So if you're going to be a danger to the public, alcohol must be regulated.
Okay. I don't know how to end it, but let me honor your last statement.
Alcohol must be regulated, and it's already regulated from our perspective. And we don't want this country to hide its head in the law when dealing with alcohol, because there's a lot of studies across the world. We must challenge families out there, primarily to deal with social vices, alcohol being one of them, and bring people who can make the right choices when they are adults. So long as people don't want or are not programmed to follow the law, it's fine to have the law. But let's not think it will solve alcohol abuse. And then we really want, as the industry, persistently to urge everyone to separate abuse and alcohol.
Yeah.
We are proud of alcohol, its place in society, but we are not proud of abuse. And we are doing everything within our means to discourage abuse. And we ask government, parliament, let's fight abuse. And abuse is primarily in the dark corners of the illicit alcohol, because it is cheap. Why is it cheap? It's not taxed. It's not registered. It's not known. It's not certified by UNBS. If we do not put government machinery in that area, we shall make a law fine, but abuse will not stop.
Good. Good point there. Professor Sarah, I think that's one of the things that we really need to take seriously, and also for the for our policy makers. Mixing up issues. We have very many social challenges, you know, catastrophes, and when we collapse all of them into just one issue, say drug abuse or, you know, alcohol abuse, I think we miss a lot of them. I don't know what type of advice, as you make your last point, you can give on that aspect in our discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charles. I think as we conclude, it's true there have been very many vices in society and affecting families, and for those vices, actually Parliament has been trying to come up with bills. They talk about domestic violence, domestic acts, the police has been put on the alert, child protection. So there are many things, and for each of these things, government has attempted to respond with a kind of regulation. The implementation may be something different. So one of the things which is needed to be addressed was the alcohol thing. Because while we had very many old laws, as we've seen, they are absolute. So I think in addressing and coming up with this comprehensive alcohol bill, they are trying to resolve one piece of the jigsaw puzzle that has not been, that is at the core of these social vices, especially at household level, but which has not been addressed because the laws were absolute. So I think Parliament is on course, and if all the others are come in place together and fall in place together, we might have more productive families. Of course, not to forget the socio-economic issues of lack of jobs and many other things. All those need to be fixed. But also beyond that, as we come up with the law, I think it's good we have those that are currently complying, but we cannot assume they will be the only ones that are there. So let's come up with a comprehensive law to regulate both individuals, consumers, and also the producers. We are regulating both the supply and the demand side for even future people who are going to come on board. Behavior is modified. Behavior is not permanent. It gets modified through the laws we put in place, through the advertisements we put in place, and all those things. So when you have an addiction like what we are having now, modifying it through different means is an important thing. If we are complaining of the illicit things, if our population officers, the whatevers, can track where these people are and they begin paying tax, and if the consequence of that is for them to get out of it, that will be a reduction in supply. So it's one of modification. If the police are going to land and extort the big players who are already complying, and maybe some go out of business, which will be sad, but also it might push up the price of the beer bottles, it still also reduces consumption. So whether we're talking about taxation, or we are talking about all those are forms of regulation, and in
we don't want to reduce consumption, we want to reduce abuse. We want actual consumption to go up.
Yes,
so
but you,
not abuse.
On a pito, you have no control of what happens to that beer beyond your production line.
Yes.
I agree, and I'm addressing the other side which you're not managing. So please listen. So basically that is it. So I think the law is timely. The things which are there can be fixed, but the law is timely, and it should be for all, not just for small providers who are illicit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. There's someone who says, Charles, please applaud our great gallant mothers of this nation for a great topical discussion for our common good. A lot needs to be discussed, not limited to only alcohol, but a lot of other drinks, including You Fresh. I don't know this one. That there is another one called Knock Me Out.
Yeah, they are there.
And so many things in the names of fruit juices. Honorable Sarah Opendi, there is a high increase in SCDs, in NCDs. Statistics highlight increase in cancer epidemiology. Ask yourself why. There are some fruit juices to mention, but a few. That Honorable Sarah Opendi, you need to consult my lecturer, Mr. Kavanda of Ministry of Health, for more submission. I am David. I think Mr. Kavanda is he's a commissioner in charge of community.
We have the information, but the time was limited. So
yes, something like that. But Council Sarah, your last word.
You know,
Even a faulty clock tells the right time at least once.
Twice a day. Twice in a day.
Twice in a day. Yeah, so when we have challenges as a society. We have a crisis of moral decadence. We have a crisis of depression. We have a crisis of mental health that we are not following up on. The Ministry of Health said 14 million Ugandans are mentally ill. So we have all this, mix of challenges in society, and many people find comfort in drinking, thinking that alcohol can wash away their problems. So when society says, okay, we have alcohol, it is selling, it's a business, but do you leave society to drown in a depression and alcoholism? Then how do you develop the other indicators of a country? How do you develop your human capital? And it's good most of the audience there supports regulation of this bill. A society can only bequeath its generation two things: roots for a foundation, we need to save the young population, and wings to fly. So I call upon the MPs to support Honorable Sarah Opendi, and we have this law enacted. What happens after? We deal with it as it comes.
That's a good one. Finally, Honorable Minister, wind up for us.
I think
your last message on this.
I'll start from where Castle Sarah has stopped. Let us not fear about what happens after. There are many laws in this country where implementation has been and enforcement has been successful. Like Honorable Penny told you, the Tobacco Control Act. You can't see anybody smoking right now. So there are many laws which really have succeeded, and the enforcement has been perfect. And I strongly believe if we all have faith in this law, it's going to work, because we all observe and accept that alcohol is one of the biggest problems we have in society now, and mainly the illicit drinks, which we have to fight as much as possible if we are to save the young population. And lastly, since it is now 16th today, it is General Room Day.
Oh, yes.
And all Ugandans, we shall go north to go and commemorate that day. But we always forget the two important people that died with him on the same day. I think Ofumbi and Eriano. Erinayo. So I think next time,
former IGP. So next time I think we should really we should pray for all of them, because they all died for the same cause. Yeah. And General Rum was a very religious man, and I don't know whether it was by design that you discuss something which is biblically sin to overdrink. So if we want to promote his values, I think I would like to congratulate Sarah Opendi and encourage her to bring the bill as soon as possible. I'm just wondering whether she will get the certificate of financial
No, she's going to get it. So we shall support Honorable Opendi on that bill, and so that we can have a productive society.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you so much, Honorable Opendi.
Sarah said her last word.
Yes, she did. She was the first one. Thank you.
But can I just say something small?
Yes.
That government, the executive, passed the alcohol control policy.
Yes.
In 2019.
Yeah.
So there is already a policy in place.
So you are picking a lot
So
from
the
there.
law, actually the policy is going to inform the law.
Okay.
So I'm not starting from
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Honorable Onapito Ekomoloit, and thanks for standing up to 4 people against you. I thought that, and you did it very effectively. I thought that your corner was going to have at least 2 of you. You ended up alone, but you did it, you know, how perfectly you did it, you know.
Yeah.
I admire your courage.
You know, alcohol is a lubricant of discussion and debate.
It's a lubricator of so many things. Thank you so much, Professor Sarah Sali, and for coming always when we ask you off your busy schedule. Professor Sali is also a member of the Makerere University Council, so they are quite busy, and dealing with a big school is also challenging on its own. But that you find time to come in this program, we really appreciate your time. Of course, thank you so much, Councillor Sarah Birete, for always coming here and ensuring that you share with the nation your thoughts and your experiences. Thanks to all of you, especially the guys who ensure that they share with us their messages and comments and questions. We really appreciate. We don't take it for granted. From the entire team here, especially the technical and production team, Etiang and group, Margaret and the rest, thank you very much. God bless you. Celebrate the Janan Luwum Day tomorrow, or today later, peacefully. It's a public holiday in Uganda. And God bless you all. Bye-bye. Until next week, take care.
We bring you a fresh, well-researched program to help you identify opportunities for investment, job creation,